Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to what was on sale at the grocery store this week. And this week, chubs of ground beef. I often use chubs of ground beef because it's about half the price of the beautiful ground beef in the styrofoam tray. And I buy this because it's budget friendly, just as good, budget friendly, and it's always in the fresh meat section, so refrigerated. I went yesterday and they had a whole bunker full of these frozen, which is, often what I'll do anyway, is just buy a few of them and stick them in the freezer at home. They must have gotten to the point where they needed to be sold. Someone stuck them in the freezer. I got something that's normally half of the regular cost, half off again. That's a bargain. I'll take it. So I've got this cast iron brazier. It's coming up to temperature, and we are going to fry off the ground beef, get it nice and brown. Okay, the beef is almost browned off. Of course, when you're cooking like this, if there's too much fat, take some of the fat out. If there isn't enough fat, put some fat in. You have to kind of cook. You have to figure that out on your own. I'm looking at this and thinking, there's probably a little bit too much fat, but I'm going to let it brown a little bit more and make an assessment later. Right now, I'm going to season with salt and some pepper. So I've ground it into a dish that I can sprinkle in instead of putting the grinder into the steam rising off of that. Now, be careful with your salt, depending on your beef stock that you're using. If your beef stock is salty, you may not want to put too much salt in at the beginning and then test it at the end to make sure that you've got the right amount of salt. It's easier to add than take away, but that should be fairly obvious. This is pretty brown now, so we're going to move on to some thyme. Oh, first, before I put the thyme in, I'm going to put in some onions. And then some thyme. Now I'm using fresh thyme because I had it left over from another project. Dried thyme works just as well. I had those onions. Those are little pearl onions. I had them from another project, so I'm using them, but any regular onion would work. I would probably use shallots because I use shallots for everything, and I really like how they taste. Getting some good fond on the bottom of that pan. Okay, make a hole in the center. And we'll come in with some tomato paste. Give that a little bit of a stir. We'll just let the paste brown a little bit and caramelize. Next in, a little bit of garlic, and use as much or as little garlic as you like. 2 cloves is enough for me, I think. Next in, because we're cooking with beef, you know what I'm talking about. Scoop of Marmite. Oh. I feel like Pooh Bear trying to get that last little bit of honey out of the pot. Okay, so get as much out as I can by scooping it. I'll use a little bit of beef stock. Let's see if I can shake the rest out. I'll heat it up maybe a little bit too. Okay, Marmite. Beef stock. We'll stir that all together. Now I'm going to let this simmer kind of medium heat on the stovetop here for 15-20 minutes. Let it thicken up. I will probably need to add a beurre manier at the end in order to thicken up, and that's equal parts flour and butter mashed together and then stirred in, and that will thicken up the sauce. Very classic French way of thickening sauces. Before you add the beef stock, if you don't want to do a beurre manier, that freaks you out. Before you add the beef stock, stir in maybe a tablespoon of flour and coat it in the oil and the other ingredients so it doesn't clump, and then put the beef stock in, and you'll end up with the same sort of thing. It will thicken on its own during this 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, this has come together quite nicely. Now, what I'm going to do is add some frozen vegetables. Don't get hung up on which frozen vegetables I'm adding, but I've got green beans from our garden, frozen peas, and corn. Use any mix of frozen vegetable that you like. Use any mix that you've got on hand. Don't think too much about it. Use what you like. So I'm going to mix those in. You don't want to put them in too early because you don't want to overcook them. If your frozen vegetable cooked for 20 minutes and then cooked in the oven like we're going to cook it next with the biscuit on top, it would be way overcooked. So just mix that in, and then we're going to make a biscuit topping. And this is sort of a meal that I've made several times on the channel. I do love one recipe way back, and it's sort of a chicken pot pie with a biscuit topping. I love biscuit toppings. So, flour, baking powder, salt, and butter into a food processor. Lid on. Beautiful. Now I've got some cheddar. Of course, the cheese is completely up to you. Use cheese, don't use cheese. What kind of cheese do you like? Use the cheese you like, of course. Completely optional, but I'm going to put in a little bit of cheddar. So I'm going to mix it in first and get it coated with flour and butter. Then we need a cup of buttermilk. And mix that buttermilk into the flour and the cheese. Now I'll just use an ice cream scoop and drop the biscuit dough on top of our stew. Use 2 spoons. Use your hands to pull out the dough and, make little balls and roll it and put it in. I'm just using a scoop because it's easy, and I get tired. After a day of cooking in this kitchen, I get tired of washing my hands 40 times. And for everybody who's about to tell me to wear gloves, I'm not wearing gloves when I cook. I need that tactile experience. I need to feel the food. So, one last biscuit going in here. The oven's preheated to 450 degrees, and I'm going to put the whole thing in the oven uncovered for about 20 to 25 minutes until the biscuits are cooked. Okay, so we already just tasted the mashed potatoes. Julie was already here. We're moving on to this stew with biscuits on top.
I know I'm confident I have told you how much I love stew with biscuits made on top. I just love I love the flavor in the bottom of the biscuit. There we go. They even look like they're cheesy biscuits.
They are cheesy biscuits.
Oh, that's making them special, Glen.
Okay.
So I'm going to crack that over. I'm even going to flip my biscuit over just so I can get that really great look at that, eh? Oh, it's all soft and gooey.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mmm. Oh, it's hot.
This is very comforting.
Mmm. Mm-hmm.
So, it's cheap. It's easy to make. It's filling. It's tasty. I mean, it really is what's on sale meal from the grocery store.
And you can put so many vegetables in it. Mm-hmm. So many vegetables, and it can bring you joy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has for me. This is fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I really like this. We're just going to keep shoveling this back until it's time to taste the cake. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.